making those possible what those improvements would cost before making final recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and to the town's taxpayers. The Selectmen agreed and put out a request for proposals last December for architectural engineering services to work with the Swift House Task Force to provide a thorough needs assessment addressing the above concerns and to help determine the cost of those needs. The firm with the most appropriate skills and experience in restoration of historic municipal buildings turned out also fortuitously to quote the most reasonable fee for its services at $13,900. It should also be noted that Connecticut state funding grants are available up to $250,000 for restoration of historic buildings for municipal use, but that in order to apply for such grants, one of the requirements is that the town must first have conducted a professional needs assessment. So the Swift House Task Force is asking that the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance identify funding and approve the modest amount necessary in the 23-24 operating budget or elsewhere for the needs assessment. Without that information, it will not be possible for fully informed consideration of the future of Swift House to take place by town officials or the town's taxpayers. Sorry, it's spring. The boards of selectmen and finance should also consider that the town of Kent owns very little property for municipal use in the village center. In fact, town officials have been criticized from time to time for not planning and setting aside funds for future needs for those rare occasions when desirable properties become available. So it seems all the more reasonable that Swift House be retained for any number of potential municipal uses, and that the $200,000 capital budget for Swift House upgrades, as originally recommended, be retained in the 23-24 town budget to make sure the funds are available to advance the use of the Swift House as soon as possible, if that is the decision of Kent's taxpayers. As Kent's town government grows and space is in greater demand, it should be kept in mind that it is far less expensive for the town to make modest improvements to an important historic building like Swift House that lends character to the town and that it already owns, with major improvements already made, than to start from scratch to dig a new foundation and expand a bricks and mortar building with all the costs and requirements that would be involved. Once Swift House is gone, so are all the possibilities for its future town use. Submitted by Zane Charity, Chair, Swift House Task Force. So we will get copies of this. This will be attached to the minutes too. So that takes care of correspondence. Reports from the tax collector?
Oh, just I have just handed you my report. I was feeling good about it because with 2 months left to collect, we are at 98.4% collection rate of the 11 million blah blah dollars that I need to collect. We only need 9,934 more. And more importantly, back taxes collected to date are $64,034. So that's surplus money. And there is surplus interest so far of $19,440. So we're working on surplus dollars. Nice, 2 months ago.
Nice. Keep it up. Any questions for Deb? All right.
Oh, one more thing, if I may. Every year I bring up my suspense list and everybody goes, oh no. So I'm bringing it up again. I need to know if you're meeting in May or June so I can submit my suspense list prior to June 30th. So keep that in mind when you're canceling meetings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, July's too late, right?
Yes, it is June 30th.
Okay. All right. We're to bed.
I just have 3 quick things. I think you've already heard before, but just to make it official, the solar project has been canceled with the Green Bank. They couldn't make it work for them financially with the amount of panels that we were able to put up on the roof. Second thing is both of our organizations, you sent me information about the clean air grant funding from the state. So I looked into that. We usually do those region-wide, and I talked with Lisa Carter, our superintendent. We did not apply for the first round of funding on that, the one that just got distributed, because it was a very cumbersome application process. It required an engineering survey. It required a lot of coordination between the Board of Ed, Board of Finance, and Board of Selectmen, and it required matching funds from the town. So anything you received from the state would have to be matched from the town. And the central office didn't feel we had a good chance of receiving any money, so they didn't pursue that one. The next round is open now, and I think it closes in August, so they're in the process of looking at that to see if there's any difference in
We have a need. Which was the other thing, I like you, I just saw it and I thought pass it along, but it's a need. Do we have an HVAC need that?
I don't think we have any major needs, region-wide, but we're looking at it, so I'll keep you updated on that. And then the last thing is we're trying to promote our spring middle school play, which is next Thursday, April 27th at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. 7. But you'll see flyers up around town. We're going to be posting on Facebook, so you're all invited. It's free. It's in the gym. And we'd love to have everybody there. So.
What's the play?
It's Shrek the musical.
Wonderful.
I've been warned there's a little bit of immature humor, but.
Because William Steig was from Kent when he wrote Shrek, right?
Really?
What's going on?
No kidding.
They used to live here, yeah, I'm pretty sure he was here when he wrote it,
I didn't know
yeah.
that. All the more reason.
Been the local influence.
Since he looked at my house, let's not say so.
So would the Board of Selectmen have anything?
Hi, all. Just a couple of things. Last year, the veterans came to the Board of Selectmen to, in a sense, hand off the Memorial Day Parade back or to the town. They were just running into some challenges, running it from a logistics standpoint. And so we had a sort of a transition year where Jared and I shadowed Brent Kallstrom and helped out with all the logistics and everything. And this year, we're now sort of switching seats, and Jared and I have had a couple of internal meetings just talking about the pieces and parts, and we'll be planning a meeting probably in the next week to pull in the land trust and the Lions, just to have a quick huddle to talk about everybody's role, and talking about possibly a minor change in the parade route so that the Veterans Memorial is actually passed by, but just need to wrap up a couple of other things with that. Watching a number of bills, appropriations just came out with their sort of version of the state budget, which has some sort of interesting additions and changes to it. But watching a huge number of bills that have a lot of different municipal impact, but it's still honestly the middle of April, a little bit early to start panicking or doing any prep for the for when anything might come out in the wash. About a year ago, HRRA, which is our the Housatonic Resource Recovery Authority, they manage and we're part of an authority that manages our municipal solid waste and recycling and everything. They applied on our behalf for a grant through DEEP for a pilot program for organic food scrap collection. I think I've talked about this a couple of times. We finally, a year later, got notification from DEEP that we were awarded the grant. It's around $55,000, so it's really going to go a long way in enabling us to work with HRRA. They're going to actually administer the grant for us because they're the subject matter experts. But we're going to create a pilot program that will go for 1 year, and it will envelop not only the composting or the organic food scrap collection, but also this model called unit-based pricing. Some people know it as pay as you throw, which is a model in the grand scheme of how do we reduce the waste that gets into the municipal solid waste stream. And has been a proven way across the country to get the right stuff in the right stream. So we're going to be quickly sort of ramping up that program, which will involve a much lower price and it's all voluntary. So those folks who use the transfer station, they will get a discounted price if they want to be part of the pilot program. A lot of details to work out. We will be holding an informational session with Jen Pete Jones. She calls it a trash talk about the whole program. So that will be coming up probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks as we really very quickly, because we have to do it all in the next month or so. I got an email from Jen Dubray today about they were just sort of advised about some costs in order to integrate the assessors and the new online building permitting software solution that land use put in their budget. And she is asking for an additional $5,400 put in the assessor's line for implementation. I believe it's the total is $5,400. There's an implementation one-time cost, and then there's an annual subscription cost. I'm not sure how the Board of Finance would like to walk through that. I haven't had a chance to bring it to the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, we didn't have a meeting between this afternoon and right now. So you let me know how you'd like me to proceed. Those are the high points.
Okay, thank you.
Jean, just on the transfer station and the composting, how long will it take from the pilot to figure out how much we might be able to save because the wet trash takes up so much, which will I assume that therefore is going to enable them to reduce how much it's costing us. Is that correct? We just don't know how much.
Yeah, so it's a 1-year pilot program. Part of the deliverables are monitoring and looking back at what our tonnage has been and comparing it to what our tonnage becomes. And Jen is going to be working with Rick on making sure, obviously, that we meet those deliverables, and that will give us a view into how much the town can save, and also getting those very wet stuff that doesn't belong in the municipal solid waste stream to then try to burn where it needs to go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Jane? Thank you. Barbara, do you have any
Treasurer's report.
type of a report?
No, nothing above all the other stuff.
Okay, you've been a little full, I'm sure. Okay, so the next item is the streetscape debt presentation, discussion and possible action.
Okay, so I guess I need to do a screen share, right? So that the people online can. Oh, tonight you don't read it. Yeah. So as you know, for the past couple of meetings, I've been gently pushing forward the idea of not issuing debt to pay off what we owe on the streetscape. So this first page is just the funding resolutions that have already been passed. And the reason I provided these is just to talk very quickly about what they actually enable you to do. So the taxpayers have already appropriated the money, so it's not like we have to appropriate anything. So all we need to decide now is how we're actually going to cover that appropriation. Now, the streetscape phase 1 is, for all intents and purposes, already complete. And it's already been paid for with funding that was in the 5-year reserve. There are 2 funding resolutions that are currently in place. One is for the phase 1 of streetscape and the second one is for phase 2. That was a requirement of the grant for phase 2. So that's why that is the way it is. If you turn the page, let's see. Here we go. If anybody at home can see this. This is our funding and expenditures to date on phase 1. There was $900,000 in state grants. There were 2 different grants. As of today, we've already received one of the grants in hand. The other one is in the process of being released to us. There was a $10,000 individual donation that was quite old. That was at the very inception of the idea, way back when an individual taxpayer donated $10,000 to go towards engineering and exploratory information. There was a $100,000 appropriation that made its way through the 5-year capital plan for this project. And then there are some program reimbursements because there were some individual property owners on the main street that asked for additional work to be done. And the only way that our contractor would do it is if it became part of our contract, we paid for it and then got reimbursed. So that's what that is. Then obviously you can see the expenses are broken down between the different categories. And the biggest cost on the bottom is the general construction. That's the actual cement and granite. So the total expense was $2.8 million, offset by the funding that we had. So we have $1.263 million and change. So I'm just calling it $1.3 million for these that we need to do something about. One of our options is to do nothing. It's to let it sit there and let the interest in the 5-year capital reserve replenish it as it may. My estimation is that would take about 20 years. So I don't think that's a good idea. On the next 2 pages, home.
And what form does that take, Augustus? Is it a note? Is it, I mean, where is it recorded? The
No,
balance.
it's just recorded on our books. We don't have to, we've already appropriated the money.
Right.
So this is just my way of showing where we are with the project. So I was hoping to show them 2 pages at once, but I don't think it's going to look the way I wanted it to. So there are basically 5 options if we eliminate the option of doing nothing. We have a USDA lending program that we could apply to. And I listed the pros and cons of each thing that, under our options. We have a bank loan that we can go get. We can issue bond anticipation notes or bands. And typically what those are used for is to replenish your cash and you pay interest only. And then you actually issue a bond and pay those off. That's what the purpose of those are. Then there's the traditional bond issue. And then there's the last option that I'm advocating for, which is to just pay the cost internally. So with each of these, there, except for the last one, there are additional expenditures that would trickle through the budget to the taxpayers in the term of interest on the debt as well as issuance costs. And on the very back page, I give you some idea of what that looks like for each kind of, oops, Sorry, people at home. There you go. Oops. Of what that expenditure would look like. So because we have so much money in our undesignated general fund, and that has been a topic of discussion year over year, my proposal is to not issue any debt, not cost taxpayers any more money, and transfer $260,000 for the next 5 years out of the general fund to the capital fund to return that 1.3 million. That does a few different things. It keeps the money in-house and it keeps the money still working for us. And right now, interest rates for us have been pretty favorable and we've been earning nice interest income. It's the least work intensive for me. There's no extra work involved in doing that for me. I don't have to contact any banks, any lenders. I don't have to create an official statement. I don't have to do any of that work. It'll help keep the general fund balance at a steadier rate. But by doing it over the next 5 years instead of doing it all at once, it also gives the general fund every year annually at the end of the budget process a little time to recoup some of that 260 or maybe all of it. As you know, we've had surpluses year over year over year. You can see that on the very bottom of this. And we also know that in discussions with the Board of Ed in their roof project that there's going to be 300,000 coming in.
Anticipating, depending on what the cost actually is of the project, but that's what we're anticipating.
And that'll go back into the general fund. So to me, it just seems like the most efficient, effective, and responsible way to approach this issue. And I'll open for questions if anybody has any questions.
It's a very crisp presentation, Barbara, very straightforward. And, you know, that the solution you're offering is, you know, the optimal one, I think. I think that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think the only question, I think it is too, by the way. And the only question is during that period, if there's some unplanned expenditure, you know, something that we don't anticipate now.
On the streetscape or something?
No, or something else. I mean, where there would be some need, some capital.
Okay, so the bond resolution does not expire until we retire it. So it stays open so that every year we could revisit this and say, is this the best path forward? Do we need to issue debt now? It's always in our back pocket as an option. The other thing that this allows us to do is get phase 2 completed. Now that's a very advantageous grant for us because the federal government is paying 80% of the cost. At this time, it's anticipated that the town's out-of-pocket cost will be $500,000. And that part of the streetscape is bigger than what we've already completed. So it's very advantageous, but this also allows us to wait. And if that isn't the case, and for something, who knows, if something crazy happened and we paved over paradise, or what was that song from the 60s? If we had to issue debt, we still could. This doesn't bend our ability to issue debt if and when we decide we need to.
Yeah, so I think that this could be revisited every year at budget season, just to say, do we still want to continue with this course?
The other thing too, just one more thing that made me, Nancy's comment made me think of is a 1.3 million bond issue seems big to us, but it's a very small bond issue.
It's a lot of paperwork for a little money.
Well, it's not very attractive to people who are buying bonds.
Yeah.
They don't want that, such a small bond issue. So the chances of us getting a really advantageous interest rate are reduced because it is such a small issue, would be such a small issue. And as you saw on the last page, the issuance cost for a bond issue would be, and that's low. I thought, when he gave me that number, I thought it was low because we have the financial advisor, we have legal, and then we have to do a bond rating, which is $10,000 plus, so. Just seems like it's the best way to save money and make our money continue to work for us.
This is Casey. I just, again, I'm looking to be better informed. So what we're talking about is, I mean, these monies have been expensed out of the capital fund. And we're
Yes.
talking about how do we pay it back into the capital fund? And you're suggesting from other funds that are on hand, which makes sense to me as well. And where is the 500,000 for phase 2 coming from?
That's already been appropriated, and that, again, is going to be the same situation. At the end of phase 2, we will be making a decision of how we want to put that back into the capital fund, whether we want to transfer it from the general fund, whether we want to put it in the capital plan and tax the taxpayers for just that, whether we want to issue debt or borrow money. There's a
Right,
handful of different ways to put that money back.
thanks. And when is phase 2 supposed to take place?
My understanding is it's going to be more than a year from now.
Thank you.
We're in the process. We've already started the process. We're already having meetings. We've got our architects, no, engineers, architecting the sidewalk project. So it's started. Just,
Well, and also that just means that, so no matter what, for year one, there's no risk for us to go down this path, right?
Correct.
You know, not that there is down the road even, but.
no, there's no requirement. Like I said, this resolution does not expire. And we can keep it on the books as long as we want, but it can only be used for that.
Sure.
We can't supplant some other project for it, but.
Sounds like a good plan, Barbara.
What was the figure for every year? Oh, 260,000. But that money doesn't actually go anywhere. It goes from this bank account to this one. So it's still earning interest, it's just on the other side of the fund.
Any other thoughts?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, so,
Do we need a motion to do that, or
I think that would be advisable.
okay,
so moved?
great. I'd second, that.
Okay. What is the motion, Casey?
The motion is to move the monies in accordance with Barbara's suggestion.
Right, so to adopt Barbara's,
Right.
what did you call it, proposal? Yes, recommendation.
Internal, yeah, the internal option,
To finance it internally.
Okay.
yes.
Great.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Great.
Okay, Barbara. So next on, under new business is the EMS update.
Okay, gotta change hats now. So, just to update you guys, we've noticed, at the department over the past couple of months that there's been an increased, how do you put it? It's hard to get staff. Do you want one?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So the fire chief, brought the staffing committee back together to start us all down, said you guys need to start working again on, what we're gonna do in the future. So we invited all three, there's only 3 staffing companies in the state of Connecticut. We invited all 3 to come out, give us a presentation on their costs, what they can provide for us, that type of thing. And what I did on this for you guys was just broke it down, the 3 companies, and how much an hour it is, what they would charge, and how much they pay their employees. So like Company A, I'll just go through it real quick. Set shifts, core hours, this is the same hours each week, every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. We have those, it's $40 an hour. The per diem hours is if I give them over 30 days notice. I say, okay, in May, I'm gonna need you on this day, this day, this day, and it's not part of those core hours. The cost goes up to $52 an hour. Any short notice where I say, oh my God, someone's going on vacation next week or they're sick, last minute, it's $60 an hour. They pay their employees $25 to $30 an hour. The yearly cost, the $359, $424, what I did was I figured that I took an average of March of 22 to March of 23, and we requested an average of 96 shifts per week, or per month, I'm sorry, per month. Each shift is 6 hours, multiplied that by 12 months. That's how I came up with that $359. That does not include holidays, which is time and a half that we would get charged. That's literally just the flat rate. Same thing with Company B. They were a little less expensive. And then the current company who we have now, and you can see that's, they're the cheapest, but they're also paying their employees the least amount of money. And I went to the company 3-4 months ago and said, you guys got to get more people out here. I mean, they were giving shifts back to us. We couldn't fill them. They did a whole bunch of interviews and said, well, we had people that wanted to come to Kent, but as soon as we told them that we were gonna pay them $20 an hour, they said, no, thank you. Because it's so far for people to drive to get to this area, where they could go to another company and make or not another company, but another location and make 25. So we had a meeting. This is not a final number because it has to go through, the department has to vote on it. But it's the proposal that the staffing company or committee is going to give to the department.
And so that is a rate that reflects what you think it's costing them to get here also? That's at an hourly rate?
So, yeah, so the 23 to 25 that we would pay, or the company would pay their employees, that's a pretty average rate for this area. Stony Hill, I think, pays 25, North Canaan pays 23. So it's about the going rate for this area of the state. And again, then that total number of the 241,920 is just the basic. There's no holiday or anything included in that. But the staffing committee really feels that the only way to guarantee the coverage is we're gonna have to give them more money, unfortunately, and this still turns out to be, lower than, say, like Company A.
Where is Company B located?
Company B is headquartered in Harlingen.
In Company A?
I'm not sure where their headquarters are, but they have, they're in a lot of places in this area.
Are they rated? Do they have ratings, these companies, like?
I don't know the answer to that.
What about the reputation?
Company B, I will tell you, is a new company. They've only been around, I think it's a year. A and the current one have been around longer. I'm not sure. I don't have all my other papers here. How long they've been around, but they've been around much longer. So I just, like I said, these are not solid numbers because we still have to go to the department for them to approve before we can come ask, but I wanted to give you guys a
And is-
heads up that this is coming.
Right, and
Which way are you leaning?
We're actually leaning on staying with the current company. We're very happy with them, and,
Except that they're giving shifts back.
right,
Okay.
because, and like I said,
I
because
think
of
this
the-
addresses that.
that is what
That's what
they
they're
said is the problem.
Okay.
So you're going
The
to
money.
keep going.
And what does this do budget-wise to that line?
It's less than what's budgeted.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be
Well,
nice?
the proposal is not close to what's budgeted.
Excuse me?
The proposal,
It's 207, right?
no, that's what the current.
I thought you said the recommendation was.
Proposal's 241,920.
Current is 207.
They're using the same company, but
I'm sorry. So it's 11,000 more.
Right, and it will be a little more than that, because like I said, this doesn't include any holidays or anything.
but this is, but
This is preliminary.
we're.
Very, yes.
And this is also, I mean, we're way under that line item right now.
Right.
Well, we're getting caught up.
We're
They've
getting
been,
caught up.
I've been getting 2 bills a week from, because Marcy got really far behind.
Well, and there was,
Something got far behind, not Marcy, but.
there was a reason for that.
So in the past 2 weeks, I've gotten 5 invoices.
And you have another one coming shortly. There we go. But, so I just wanted to let you know where we're at.
Appreciate it.
But you think the 23 to 25 addresses the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
And the contract, just a point of reference, the current contract that we're in right now ends December 31st of this year. So the thought process of the staffing committee was, let's give them this, give them till the end of the contract and see if they can fulfill it, if this money really does make the difference. If not, then we've got 2 others, but.
Any other thoughts or questions on the topic? Okay. We'll move on to the next item of business, which is the 24 budget. And I will remind the board that we don't have, there's not a lot of runway left between now and the budget hearing on May 5th.
Right.
So we're going to have to take some actions tonight.
Well, we got a new budget that reflects the changes they made at the Board of Selectmen.
But part of this does not, the new budget document does not include transfer from unassigned funds.
That's correct.
Correct.
It wouldn't anyway. It's not part of the budget.
Right.
It's just sort of it's a transfer, it'll show up in the financials, but it's not gonna be part of this.
Part of it is we're targeting to get to where we're trying to target to. which we-
Right.
Yeah.
And what we got back doesn't quite get us to the 1 mil.
Well, it will when we add in the 200,000 that Nancy talked about at the meeting.
But there's another piece that's the 200,000, what part coming
The
from?
emergency general fund,
Yeah.
that's not shown in the presentation that I issued. But the other thing that isn't part of this presentation is the change between, looks like Jean has a question with her hand up.
Okay,
The change between the fire department's abatement going from 1,000 to 2,000 for certain people.
Right.
So the presentation that I issued over the
Doesn't have
weekend
that either.
doesn't have that.
so Jean, did you want to add something at this point?
Just wanted to offer if you wanted a sort of high level overview of what the Board of Selectmen discussed at their meeting last week, happy to give you the 1 minute or less of that.
Go ahead,
Yeah, that would be great.
I did get to watch it, which was helpful.
Okay, great. Let me just move my deck chairs around here for a second, so I have everything in front of me. And I'll turn my video on, apologies. When we went into the meeting and what I had pitched to the Board of Selectmen was that all of the departments really came to the table with sharpened pencils, and when you look at it department by department, they run very lean. They're not, having big increases year over year unless they have a special project or a piece of software or something. And so I really focused on not hitting the department lines, and was able to add up $71,000 in cuts out of the operating budget. So that was from the following lines. We took 15,000 from contingency. We took 25,000 from attorney fees, 10,000 from the Scotticook line, 16,000 from police protection, and 5,000 from the ball fields. And then on the capital plan side, we based it on the recommendations that you gave to us that night. And the only thing that we did not move out was the Rescue 8, because in talking with the fire department that was there, it cuts up that truck too much into over 2 years. But we did move 160,000 of DPW out to 2029. We moved 175,000 of the splash pad out to 2029. We moved 125,000 of the Swift House out to 2029. We moved the $25,000 communication upgrade out 1 year, and the Emery Park $25,000 out 1 year, which totaled 510,000.
When I both watching the meeting and going through the stuff, I guess my only question really was the splash pad. Whenever you do it, I don't know why you didn't want to just move the whole thing into the next year, because I actually happen to think that gives you some flexibility with your new park and rec sky to look, it gives you an extra year to also just look at how does Emery Park and where you want to go with the pool and the splash pad fit together. So I happen to think that there's a benefit to moving that whole thing, not to get rid of it, but simply it gives you some more room to figure it out. And it also does, at least a quarter of that extra gives you a little more, because you were trying to find a few bucks for the Swift House thing, for instance. So I think that's a harmless way to come up with a few bucks, because you were down to looking literally for little teeny pieces of money. And I thought that, and frankly, just in the capital budget, that was my only comment. So I think, I kind of looked up everything on splash pads. I understand what you're trying to do, but I think we've got this other big issue, which is the future of Emery Park and how we want to do it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to just move that whole splash pad thing. You've done 3/4 of it or whatever anyway. And it's more
Can
just
you
like.
Swap over to the capital plan tab.
Oh, excuse me?
I just was asking Barbara if she can
Oh, put the
over
slide
to
up.
the capital plan tab. No, that's okay. I just don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. So I was just saying so for no other reason than I think it kills two birds with one stone. And I think, you got a park and recs person who wants to think creatively and big ideas anyway. I think it could help you on two fronts.
Mhm. Yeah, that we gave back to you our, best foot forward, but if that's what you all would like, then, we're obviously willing to work to get to the goal that everybody is trying to get to.
Well, it's not so much cut, but I just think there's a benefit, and you get a little extra, cash and, operating wise also from it, which, as I said, looking at how you were struggling, as you said, and you didn't want to do much, personnel wise or whatever with the departments, it just gives you a little bit, and you guys are looking for 10,000 here, 5,000 there, whatever right now. So, So for what it's worth, that's my suggestion, frankly, you know.
Do you want to make a motion?
Well, I have a different question first, which is going back to the correspondence in Ms. Charity's letter. We spent a lot of time last Wednesday night talking about Swift House. I've managed to educate myself more about it over the week. And both in terms of its historic importance to the town and to many people in the town, and to the fact that there, you know, as described in the letter, future uses. And I think most importantly in the letter, the notion that if we were to renovate it, there might in fact be other grant funding available to us. So my question is, and going back to Jason's point from last week, what if we renovate it, or if we decide to do something and try to sell it, still everybody needs to know what we have. So what is the status? What is the status from the Board of Selectmen of this notion of spending a small amount of money for this required assessment?
Right, and I'm making at least one recommendation that might help you find, you know, that small amount of money, certainly. Right. If that's what you decide to use it for.
The board is in agreement that the next step to take is to do this assessment.
So that'll be funded one way or another as part of the budget?
No.
Well, it's not in the,
Right, you gotta have a budget. Can I tell you budget?
Or do we need, in order to do it, do we need to put it in the budget? Do you need to
Yes.
put it in the budget?
so sorry, I'm gonna wait to be called on. There's a lot of.
Oh, that's right, no, go ahead, answer, go ahead, Jean, Casey had a question for you, so, yeah.
Please.
I have more urgency to that piece, the assessment piece. And I have been beating the bushes, trying to find a little bit of grant money. Barbara and I are going to talk again Friday to see if we can find money in the current budget. I don't think we should wait until July, August, September to
Right.
to get this done. And it's $13,900.
I just want to clarify that statement that Jean just made. It's not that we can find the money in the budget. It's that if it's going to be done this year, it can only be done if the Board of Finance agrees to a budget transfer. And at this point, I don't know where that budget transfer is going to come from. So to go ahead and give the green light to something where we don't have all the pieces in place.
So just a second, let Barbara finish.
Sure, sorry.
You know, so for Jean to say that we're going to get together and talk about it, we don't have a magic wand. There is nowhere in the budget to take this money from other than the Swift House and then requesting a budget transfer at the end of the year. And I'm not going to do that without permission from the Board of Finance.
Right. You're talking about this fiscal year,
Yes,
ending June 30.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for a much better articulation of that, Barbara, than I just gave.
So
There are a couple of lines in this year's budget.
Talk up, just, you got people watching, so.
There are a couple of lines in this
Can
year's
you come up to the
budget.
podium so your voice really carries well, so they hear you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Looking at this year's budget, there are a couple of lines, 218, 220, and 121, I can say 122, 13, where there doesn't appear to be anything in the pipeline, and there are unexpended funds for community legal, inland wetland legal, and Board of Assessment Appeals, the total 17,478.
Yeah, you can't spend another department's money without first talking to that department and two, getting approval from the Board of Finance for a budget
That's
transfer.
part of why I'm here, to see what the process is and see if it would be possible to look into those possibilities and see if there is anything that you're unaware of that might be coming into the pipeline, and if not, to find out what the process is to try to execute a funds transfer. Just an idea. we've been talking about this needs assessment, needs since December. And so far, the selectmen have not identified any funds to pay for it. And we're losing a great deal of time.
It really wouldn't be the selectmen's job to identify the funds to pay for it. It's this board's job.
Right, well, that's.
What's our job, but we usually get presented a budget that week, so, you know, it's kind of both sides, right?
But I've also been asking, as a backup, if no funds are available and identified in this year's fiscal budget, that it really needs to go into the next year so that we could start in July and try to take care of this process.
So you have someone identified already that would do the
Yes, we
assessment?
do. We have a firm
The historical,
that's excellent in
okay.
historical restoration and has actually helped a lot of municipalities in getting grants for the work that they've done.
And Nancy, the town did go through a request for proposal. We got in 2 proposals, sent it back to the task force to give a recommendation, and they came back with a recommendation.
yeah, they've done a lot of work in the northwest corner and over the state line too. Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, I guess the question is, all of us, but you know, so you're first gonna look at whether or not there's something in this year's budget, in which
Right.
case we get it fine.
Right.
Or we'll consider it with some of the mixing and matching we're gonna do as we try to close out the budget that we're working on or finalizing that.
Well, it needs to come from the department heads.
Right, and I have it.
Year end.
The normal process is we iron out all the expenditures first, and then we start looking at surplus and revenue.
Right.
So the next step for my office is to reach out to all the department heads and get a firm response from each of them as to where they think they're gonna end their year. That's not the first thing we do, that's one of the last things we do.
And there's an anticipated column here in the budget as it is.
Right, but that's, as I always do, I put that in because by statute it's required, and I estimate it very high
It's, yeah.
until I get feedback from the departments, but it's a little difficult for the departments in January to be able to figure out the rest of the year.
Otherwise you'd be changing it every month and you don't have time to do that.
Right. And, you know, just to speak very quickly on residual funds that may or may not be in the land use office, they've put in a request for new software in this current budget. And if that gets cut out of the proposed budget, they very may well want to take their excess funds and utilize it to purchase that software with the funding they have available to them this year. So there's a lot of moving pieces.
Plenty. Yes. So, okay, so no action at this time. Okay. So, back to the budget.
So as it stands now with the budget cuts plus the 200,000 anticipated we take out of the reserve fund, what are we looking at in terms of 1 million?
It
Yeah,
would be 1 mil at this point.
Or we have 1.2 above reserve funds
so I was wondering,
to augment, because
But
Barbara, does this
it's got
also,
1.4 above reserve.
That's right.
does this also include the 260?
The 1.4 does not.
Right.
But again, the surplus for this year isn't really calculated accurately, in my opinion, at this point.
It's too early.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
and a mill, how much money would a mill, do we need for a mill rate? I mean,
620 something? Was it Barbara?
623. 503.
And the number we, you know, had suggested or, you know, the selectmen came back a little bit above that number. Correct. But we can still hit the one with the number
Yeah,
suggested.
if I put in $200,000 from the unassigned general fund,
Right.
it brings this to an exact 1 mil increase at this point. But again, as I said earlier, there's other things that are still in flux. There's the abatements for the tax abatements for the fire department or the
Oh, right.
responders. And to your point earlier, Jason, if you take that 75, push it out of the
Right.
capital,
That's only.
and just
water that-
replace it with an appropriation for the Swift House, that would still be a $2,000 savings or something. So,
So got it. And by the way, and operating wise, I still, again, and this was frankly more having watched the last Board of Selectmen's meeting where they were scrambling. So I still happen to, one of the things I said is I still think Park and Rec's this second full-time person. If you had 2 part-timers instead and you save the benefits cost, that's another 15 or so, right? Yeah, so.
I just, as somebody that is struggling to hire somebody, anybody at this point in the Northwest Corridor, finding 2 part-time.
I just don't, well, I take a little more, but I just don't think we have an answer that even if we have it with that benefit, then it's gonna be any.
I'm telling you what the
market is,
what the market has right now, it's gonna be close to impossible.
Yeah, they'll take the job and continue to look for the full-time job, and then they're off, yeah.
Yeah, the workforce in the Northwest corner, the workforce in, attracting people to come to Kent is going to be difficult, let alone if we then have 2 part-time employees. I think this is a way to be able to fill that position.
Barbara, if we took 400,000 to retire, as an idea, what would that give us?
Could you speak up, please?
400 and put it in the budget.
If we put 400,000 in the budget.
0.68 of an increase of a mil. So it's not quite 3/4. And how come this is there, but it's not there? It might be easier for everybody if it was there.
It's just the way the.
Yeah, so you can see.
But they-
I was gonna say, we've had some difficulties this evening, so we're excited that we've got it all just showing in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we don't know why it's not displaying on that second TV. You could technically come and figure that out. So apologies there.
Well, what's on the second TV is my screen share.
Right.
But it would be easier to have my screen share on the TV in front, I think.
Oh, you're not getting a screen share on the big monitor.
That's right. We're getting all you people on the big monitor. My screen share is on the little monitor.
Which makes it easier to read.
People.
Yeah, the little one. Yeah.
Whatever.
So Rufus, what was your point with the 4?
Because we have we have quite a lot of surplus right now to not target. We all agreed we wanted to target at most.
Right, keep it under a mil, keep it at a lower.
Lower. And pending the 260 and the fire department and all the thing, I think we can get to that with an unassigned budget transfer.
Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, because I do think that as proposed, they cut more than we had asked. I think, the capital plan.
Didn't we ask between 60 and 90?
Yeah.
Yes,
We didn't give them
that's right.
we gave them a range, and what did Jean say they came in?
7, right.
So,
71.
Correct.
But also remember that 54 that the assessor sent me just this afternoon, just to keep that in the consideration pile.
Right, so that would.
And then the
take it down.
13,000, if we do put the Swift House into the next budget cycle,
It's a comfortable.
this is in line with budget transfer, or not budget transfers.
Use of the unassigned general.
Use of the site general fund that we've done over the past
Yep, it is.
5
It is.
fiscal years, without being so much that it's not sustainable.
Yeah, not raising the mill rate.
Right.
All those years. We've got to start scooching it up for sure.
Sure.
It's crazy. So any idea of what previous abatements have been for the fire department.
Yes, every year I have to put in a budget number. So in the past, I've been budgeting $44,000.
Okay.
Based on the information that I was given this week, I need to up it to 77,000.
Oh, wow.
All right, so,
Are you sure?
That's the list I was given. I counted up the number of 2000s and the number of 1000s, and it came up to 77,000.
That wasn't, well, I will talk to you after, I did not get that number when I added that same list up, so
Okay.
maybe we're on a different list.
you two have that record stuff, right?
I got my list last week. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, well, let's do worst case
Yeah.
scenario. Okay, let's be conservative. So we've got the 260 and the 77. Then we've got the 5,400
13,
and the 13,900. So let's call the 1314. And we'll call the 5,400, or we'll call it 6, just to be uber conservative, okay? So, that's bumping up, in the mid 300s,
Well,
yeah.
I can make these changes for you, so you don't have to do.
Okay, so instead of me trying to do meatball math on the fly.
So the 77, and what was the other thing? The
77
assessor's
to
office?
260 for the sidewalks.
Yeah, but that's aside from the budget.
Okay, that doesn't
That doesn't come in here. So for the assessor needs another 5,000 under data processing, so.
6, we called it, and 14 for the SWIFT.
Okay. Oops, oh, that didn't work. I hope if I put a plus instead of a. And then you're gonna leave the 75 still in the capital for the splash pad, or you're gonna move that out?
I actually think there's benefit whether or not for, that I wouldn't mind us being a little more thoughtful on how we're approaching that and Emory together. And I would think our new park and rec director would think the same thing. I mean, let's deal with it the right way,
Is there a reason that they split the certain amount out? Is there a reason they're keeping that 75?
No, just having watched the meeting, when they did it, no, I mean, other than I
There's
think.
no reason?
There was not a reason other than we'd like to keep some in the category, but it wasn't for any particular.
To start the project
Right.
or?
And what's the Swift House amount?
It was just to split it into 2 years.
Right.
Okay, okay.
13.5.
Yeah, so 14.
14,000.
And to meet the 510 that you all had
Right,
sent me, my marching orders were that
right, sure.
buckets equaling 510.
Right.
This thing is gobbling up my screen and the people are on my screen. I can't move them up. All right, well, so putting in those changes without taking out the 75, putting in 400, we're now at less than 3/4 of a mil.
Still less than 3/4.
Yeah, just a
Right.
Well, that's certainly, yeah. That would work.
I agree.
That's with the 400, that's with 400
yeah,
from the unassigned,
and then if.
plus the other
If we,
pieces.
what if we move that 75 out?
Okay,
That's not gonna save a whole lot.
It's a 25% of
well,
7.
it's gonna $15,000, 20%, so.
I'm sorry.
Now it's down to 0.71% instead of 0.75, but even so.
Right.
Well, does anybody want to make a motion or?
I
do you
would
wanna-
gladly make a motion.
And I will second it.
And what is the motion?
And the motion is to recommend to the Board of
For the town.
Selectmen, to the town, that's right, that they make the following adjustments to their budget.
You don't have to recommend to them, you can just make
We're
the
doing it,
adjustments.
we're doing it,
that
we're
you
making the adjustments.
Then that we do this,
So we're
okay,
basically proposing this to go
to the town.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
As is
The
with the
adjustments that-
75.
That's right.
So let's list them out. So we've got the splash pad
It's been removed to the other
moving
year.
to the out year.
The out year.
Okay, and then we have the 13.9 that's been added in
Right.
for
14, I
SWIFT.
think we did that.
We've got the 5,400 for the assessor's office.
Yeah.
What am I forgetting?
400.
Pardon?
That's it.
And the 400.
And the 400.
Yes.
The elephant in the room, correct, okay. All right. All right, so that's the motion. And Fran seconded it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It was unanimous.
You have a hand up.
Did you?
From who?
Patricia?
We're gonna wait until the comment period.
For comments.
Okay, then the next item of business on our agenda is the KCS roof project. And I meant to hand these out earlier, so I'm just going to give one to you. Okay? And just each take one, all right? So whoever has the first motion, if they would please read it.
That's you, Jason.
Motion number one, okay. Upon the request of the Kent Center School Board of Education, as moved and approved at their April, what is it? Sixth.
Fifth, maybe.
I'm sorry, April 5th, 23 meeting. The Board of Finance hereby approves and recommends to the electors and citizens for consideration at the May 2023 town meeting, the termination of the completed Kent Center School Windows project in the capital fund and the transfer that residual funding totaling $12,453.46 to the Kent Center School roof project in the capital fund.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Casey?
Aye.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I forgot to check in on you up there. Who's got the second motion?
Upon the request of the Kent Center School Board of Education as moved and approved at their April 5th, 2023 meeting, the Board of Finance hereby approves and recommends to the electors and citizens for consideration at the May 2023 town meeting, the termination of the sidewalk paving project and the 5-year capital plan consisting of $136,235 in fiscal year '24, $136,235 in fiscal year '25, and $136,235 in fiscal year '26, and transfer of the 3 existing appropriations to the KCS roof project in the 5-year capital plan.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and no one's opposed. All right, unanimous. And number 3,
Upon the request of the Kent Center School Board of Education as moved and approved at their April 5th, 2023 meeting, the Board of Finance hereby approves and recommends to the electors and citizens for consideration at the May 2023 town meeting, bridge funding totaling $724,705 be taken from the capital reserve and deposited to the Kent Center School roof project in the capital fund. Upon approval of this bridge funding, the capital appropriations already in place on the 5-year capital plan for fiscal year '24, fiscal year '25, and fiscal year '26 for the Kent Center School roof project totaling $724,705 will be encumbered and used to replenish the capital reserve.
is there a second? Thank you, Rufus. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. Now we have, actually, can I give that one to Bonnie? That way she doesn't have to try it. So now we're going to have comments from the public and invited guests. Public comments are welcome. Each speaker will have an opportunity to speak once prior to any speaker commenting for an additional time. No town employee or community member should be defamed within a public comment. So we had a hand up on Zoom for a while, so let's try and
Patricia,
accommodate.
you want to unmute yourself and provide your comment?
Hi, my name is Patricia Orris. I'm a 8-year full-time resident of Kent and 15-year part-time resident before that. The sound system is a little funky for those of us watching on Zoom, but did you approve the budget with those few changes that you just made? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe it would have been better to ask for public comments before you actually voted instead of after, right?
This was the second, this was.
This is only going to the public hearing, though.
Yes.
Patricia. Everybody has more
Right, but you don't-
opportunity to speak at the public hearing.
The public hearing is to vote yay or nay on the budget, not to question.
No, it's to hear comments from the
There's
public.
no vote at the hearing.
And then we make any adjustments that we feel are appropriate based upon the commentary from the public.
So we will have another opportunity
Absolutely,
to express our views on certain line items.
absolutely. And, you know,
Okay, great.
and the public is welcome during all of the budget meetings. They have all been public meetings.
I understand that, but you can only ask questions at the designated time. So,
It is a meeting, it's a meeting of the board that is held in public as opposed to a public meeting. So that's the difference of
Gotcha.
the board meetings.
got you. Okay, but we'll have another opportunity to express our opinions on the details.
Absolutely.
But you can do it.
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Unless you wish to do it now.
You can do it now, too.
Okay, the question I have is, I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting when they were working to cut the budget to your requests. And one of the things that got cut, and no one seemed to question it, is police protection, extra police protection. And that worries me a bit because we have very little police protection as is. And in a time when we're getting official emails saying, lock your car doors at night because so many cars are being broken into, or people are driving up my driveway twice this week, supposedly selling solar panels, but not having any business cards or business identification to verify that. And at a time when the Board of Education has asked for a little more police presence in town to give students and parents and teachers a little extra sense of security, it's now the right time to cut our extra funds for police protection. My opinion is no. I know I'm not alone in that opinion. Many people have expressed that. So I urge you to take a look at it. I think there are other more dispensable line items, operating budget line items that could go than that. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah. Helpful, thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Okay, well, we'll bring it back around again. Anyone here wish to speak? Please.
Ben Harrington, I'm just going to second what Patricia said.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure. We may not be able to answer it, but.
Just in line with Patricia's point, there is opportunity to comment at the May 5th meeting, but you're not allowed to increase the budget back up at the May 5th, is that correct?
I believe you can take it up or down, yes.
You can do whatever.
Whatever before they vote on it.
Yes, handbook that at the May 5th, you can only take it down.
No, that's for the town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good to know, thank you.
Since it was raised, what, Jean, are you still on?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, she.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, that's okay. Just would you remind us what the police, the overtime project, how much was that came out of the budget? Do you remember?
We took 16,000 out. It was basically, most of that planned overtime model that
Right.
had introduced.
Right. Okay, no, it's good to know because if this is an issue.
16,000, and what is, okay, Barbara, you're probably the better one to direct us. What line item is that in the budget for us to be able to see what the total is of that amount? So we understand the order of magnitude of that,
257.
57, okay. All right, so let's see, 257.
So it's basically flat now.
Oh, it's a $200,776 budget.
Right. But
So,
it's basically flat.
yeah, that's not a draconian cut, but, certainly worth considering.
And it's also a scale we should be able to, if we want to revisit it.
Yep.
Wouldn't be outrageous, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Anyone else at home or wherever you are on Zoom? Anyone else here? Okay, going once, going twice, going three times. So give a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
All right.
Thank you all for being here.
Good night, everybody.
Night.